Welcome. So in this little series of videos exploring this idea of sidechaining using Ableton's gate plugin and then putting different sorts of different types of sample loops through it, and kind of working out what kind of interesting things or results can we actually get from using this process. The process is really just the same as sidechain compression, except it's sidechain with a gate. So I have this set up with a kick drum here on Impulse on this first track, and this is playing a kick drum pattern. Let's standardize this a little bit more. So it's now playing 4 on the floor. So let me start that up. So you can see it's playing here. We don't really want to hear it because we've already got something with a kick drum, which is here. And then when we look at the loop channel, which is channel 3 here, we can see that the sidechain signal is making its way through. Now obviously we don't hear anything because the loop's not playing. Now the last few videos been listening to melodic or pitched material. So in this case, bass lines. So let's have a listen to this bass line. So this is it without the gate on. And with the gate on, here we go. Now the sorts of controls that we want to use here are things like threshold. So the higher the threshold, the less likely of the signal actually coming through. As we lower the threshold down, it will start to poke through. And you can use the return to sort of widen the width of the threshold. So rather than it being sort of something very tight like that, this gives you a little bit more wiggle room around the threshold. And the more that we drop the threshold, the more of the signal pokes through, right? So that's the idea. And we use our attack, hold and release to sort of shape this. So here you can see with the release quite high, we get a good deal more sustain, and we can also hear a little bit more of the kind of the sustain artifacts in terms of like little bits of processing and so on. So we get a little bit more signal kind of coming through. That's quite tight there. And this is going to vary depending on whatever the pattern is that we're going to be using. So here the pattern is 1 kick drum per beat, right, on each downbeat. And this is a 2-bar pattern. So what we might want is a little bit more sustain, especially for the middle. Maybe open that up a little bit. Now what I've also got is a kick drum to hear the relationship of these kinds of samples or loops too. And then a little percussion part, which is this one here. Now the important thing to kind of get from here is that depending on what kind of pattern we use for the trigger will vary how we hear the loop. So if we wanted it all to be on the offbeats, so you can see when we read the meter here, that actually the reason why it's silent here, or over this section here, you can see the signal dropping, which means that nothing's actually playing there, right? So we might want to increase that a little bit and drop the threshold. can just hear those little notes kind of poking through, which are in the middle. So those are really dynamic notes. You can see that they're quite a good deal quieter than the higher program material. Let's remind ourselves what the bass sounds like. And then with the pattern. There's a little click in this one. So I'm just going to get rid of that. Ah, there it is. So one of the other things to consider when you're looking at this sort of stuff is that you can also just highlight sections, press Command L, and have a little loop. So what we have here now is off and then 2 ons, right? 2 events. So even though there's nothing here, we have to treat it as an event in that it's not sending any signal. So if the trigger channel is not sending a signal, the gate is off. Therefore, when we look at this, we go, okay, there's a space, right? So that space is actually an active space. So now there's 2, right? So if I go back to here, this here, it basically covers 3 16th notes, which means to the bass or to this bass part, instead of hearing it as 4/4 now, we're superimposing the sound of 3 on top of it, right? Here, 1, 2, 3. So if we mute, so we only hear just the end. Let's mute that one out and bring the other one back in. Oh, I think I deleted it. Didn't want to delete it. Ah, here we go. So this one just happens in the middle, right? And that's a very particular effect. And again, one of the things that you can do is just move the start point, and that will change where this emphasis is taking place, where the gate opens. And again, we can make it into 4. And then moving the start times or the start point. Think about the effect of this, how it changes how we perceive the pattern. I mean, to me, this kind of offbeat pattern in combination with the with this bass part, it has a really interesting groove to it, right? But when you move it so that these are now downbeats, it becomes a little bit lumpy. hope you've enjoyed that, and until next time, bye for now.